Here are the stories we're covering this week in the Category 5.tv newsroom. The Raspberry Pi Foundation has updated its compute module with better thermals, an updated application processor, and more flash memory. Facebook has revealed plans to integrate WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger. Apple says it's banning Facebook's research app that collects users' personal information. And IBM hopes 1 million faces will help fight bias in facial recognition. These stories are coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Category 5.tv newsroom, covering the week's top tech stories with a slight Linux bias.
Jeff Weston,
Yeah, man.
you're building a brand new, beautiful website,
What?
aren't you?
No. Am I?
Oh, you're a terrible actor.
What?
This is where acting comes into play.
Oh, I didn't know we were acting.
You're supposed to act.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, I'm building a really cool website. Are you building a really cool website? Just because Jeff is confused doesn't mean you have to be. Visit cat5.tv/dreamhost to sign up for unlimited web hosting for your website with unlimited email accounts, MySQL databases, the latest version of PHP, WordPress, and more, and even a free domain name registration. It's less than $6 per month, so sign up today. cat5.tv/dreamhost.
I'm Sasha Rickman, and here are the top stories we're following this week. The Raspberry Pi Foundation has updated its compute module with better thermals, an updated application processor, and more flash memory. The compute module 3 Plus, a system on module, which is an SOM board, is part of a hardware family that's been around since 2014 with the launch of the CM1. That module had a single core ARM processor clocked to 700 megahertz, 512 megabytes of RAM, and a 4 gigabyte eMMC. 3 years later, the Compute Module 3 was released with the 1.2 gigahertz processor of the Pi 3 and 1 gigabyte of RAM. Here we are 2 years later, and the Compute Module 3 Plus is carrying on the tradition, adding the processor from the Pi 3B Plus into the mix. It's the size of a DDR2 SODIMM and will happily plug into a DDR2 SODIMM connector, but don't go slotting it into your PC because the pins don't do the same thing at all. This is, after all, a complete computer. The module is aimed at those wishing to embed their Raspberry Pi into their devices with a form factor more suitable for the task. All data and power is dealt with via the DDR2 SODIMM-like connector, making it for a very compact device. The Pi Foundation points to the likes of NEC as an example, where the electronics giant has used the diminutive board as the heart of some monstrous digital signage. It has also made an appearance in media players and industrial control systems. The Compute Module 3 Plus is a drop-in replacement for the previous versions from a form factor and electrical perspective. However, power supply limitations will keep the CPU at 1.2 gigahertz instead of the 1.4 gigahertz of the full-size Pi 3B Plus. Storage is perhaps the biggest change. There are now 8, 16, and 32 gigabyte
Yeah, it is gigabyte. Yep.
Gigabyte versions costing $30, $35, and $40 respectively. There is also a flashless version for those that need it. The Foundation plans to keep Compute Module 3 Plus available until at least January 2026, and in words that will bring joy to Pi fans of the world over, stated that this is the last in a line of 40 nanometer based Raspberry Pi products, indicating a clearing of the decks before the next generation makes an appearance.
Wonderful. So we're going to see, big upgrades as far as those kinds of SoCs go.
Exactly.
Now, I have to say, SODIMM, the SODIMM chips.
Yes.
Because somehow SODIMM sounds wrong.
SODIMM.
I know. So many technical terms on Category 5 TV. But basically, think of a RAM module, and it's a full computer within the connector of a SODIMM. So you're able to plug it into, like, you got a board that has multiple connectors and can plug those in, and boom, you've got computers. And now with the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus.
Right.
built on board, which is pretty sweet. So
It's very exciting. I like it.
I love single board computers. I love, like, I'm starting to get into making, creating more and more. Like, I'm working on things with NEMS Linux where, you know, I'm soldering connectors to different things. And so these kinds of chips are pretty cool.
They're perfect.
What I think is most exciting, though, for the Raspberry Pi fans is that we're finally maybe going to see an end of line to the older, like the 40 nanometer,
Yes.
and moving on to faster boards. Maybe if we can get away from that, then we can get past the 1 gigabyte of RAM limitation of the SoC, which for me is a real limitation of the Raspberry Pi. And it doesn't matter which model you have, being limited and capped off at 1 gigabyte of RAM is just like, that's killer. It's like,
it really is.
You really can't do a lot with 1 gig of RAM anymore, unless you're doing, like, certainly, I mean, there are obviously use cases where a Raspberry Pi is fantastic. You know, you're making little maker trinkets or whatever, you know, whatever. There are
Technical term.
uses.
Maker trinkets.
I don't know. The stuff that I'm doing, though, like the programming that I'm doing, really benefits from like 2 gigabytes or higher of RAM. So anything at the 1 gigabyte cap of a Raspberry Pi seems to be, you know, like a performance suffers, and you really start to, you know, I have to start working with ZRAM in the kernel and compressing the RAM, compressing the temp folder and things like that into RAM, and so it really becomes tough. So hopefully we're going to see in the next couple of years, because it seems to be every 2 years or so.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to see something kind of shift there with Raspberry Pi.
It's good times.
Facebook has revealed plans to integrate WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger. While all three will remain standalone apps, at a much deeper level, they will be linked so messages can travel between the different services. The plan was first reported in the New York Times and is believed to be a personal project of Facebook's founder, Mark Zuckerberg. Once complete, the merger would mean that a Facebook user could communicate directly with someone who only has WhatsApp account. This is currently impossible as the applications have no common core. The work to merge the three elements has already begun and is expected to be completed by the end of 2019 or earlier next year. Facebook probably didn't want to talk about this in the middle of a privacy scandal, but its hand was forced by insiders taking to the New York Times. Until now, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger have been run as separate and competing products. Integrating the messaging parts might simplify Facebook's work. It wouldn't need to develop competing versions of new features such as Stories, which all three apps have added with inconsistent results. Cross-platform messaging may also lead the way for businesses on one platform to message potential customers on another. And it may make it easier for Facebook to share data across the three platforms to help its targeted advertising efforts. But bigger still, it makes Facebook's suite of apps a much tighter interwoven collection of services. That could make the key parts of Facebook's empire more difficult to break up and spin off if governments and regulators decide that it is necessary. Linking the three systems marks a significant change as Facebook as before now, it has let Instagram and WhatsApp operate as largely independent companies. The decision comes as Facebook faces repeated investigations and criticisms over the way it has handled and safeguarded user data. Comprehensive linking user data at a fundamental level may prompt regulators to take another look at its data handling practices. So, I don't have Facebook.
You don't anymore, yeah.
I do not anymore, but many of my family members still do. And I, to be honest, before I read the story, didn't know that WhatsApp was even like a relative.
Part of their family?
Yeah. Now, I don't have WhatsApp right now, but it has, like, I have in the past thought, oh yeah, maybe I'll get WhatsApp because it's easy when my family's on vacation to message because it's just like.
So what if it could communicate with Facebook? Wouldn't that be convenient?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
I think that coming from so I know that you want to talk on the privacy end and the data privacy and data collection and all that kind of stuff, but for me, this coming from a company who cut off XMPP from their offerings. So this is a protocol that's open that is able to communicate with Pigeon and other third-party applications and being able to connect. Maybe it would have made Messenger something that could have been used with if this, then that. A lot easier, without having to hack around it. So, so keeping in mind, so this is a company that wants to keep everything that they do internal. They don't want to open it up to allow other platforms to use it. Discord, it took me an afternoon to write a bridge to be able to communicate directly with IRC.
Right, which is wonderful.
Oh yeah, the API is there and it's open and it's able to. There's such a freedom and such a flexibility there. So Facebook wanting to, hey, let's make it so that the internal, behind the scenes communicates together. I think it's a good idea from a user perspective, but is it the right approach?
See, and I mean, as soon as Sasha started reading the story, I'm going, nope, don't like it, because.
But why?
So right now, one of the appeals to people using WhatsApp is the encryption and the fact that your conversations are protected.
So keep in mind, could this mean that Facebook is going to have end-to-end encryption in Messenger and everything else?
Well, possibly, but at the same time, I don't think that's the key issue, because right now WhatsApp is it's to your phone, it is the encrypted conversation, and I know for different groups that I organize, that I'm part of, like organizations, some of the conversations we have, this makes it sound like we're doing something bad, but we want the encrypted conversations because, we might have a conversation here about this topic that we don't want getting out for privacy reasons to other members.
Yeah.
And so with that, we've adopted to WhatsApp because of the encryption to it, and I'm just seeing a whole plethora of issues of integrating this into Facebook. It's like, oh, now you can message through Facebook onto WhatsApp, and suddenly you lose that privacy aspect.
Sure.
Because when it comes to Facebook, I find that, quite frankly, the world is not very conscious of...
Does Facebook not own WhatsApp right now?
They own it, but it's a standalone.
Okay.
It's a separate application, separate business.
Right.
So now they're just going to
They don't talk, and so now Facebook is looking to make everything talk. And they're all going to cross-platform. And I mean, we know all the issues that people have had with Facebook, and we know all the issues that people have with computers and malware and ransomware and spyware. And everybody loads Facebook on their computer, so suddenly you're connecting with a WhatsApp conversation group, and it's all on your Facebook. It's like, come on.
I feel like, in Facebook's defense...
Oh, here we go.
That there's no way, with what has been coming out in the media about them lately, that encryption is not top of mind for them.
Sure.
I feel like it has got to be the start of every conversation that they have, right? So I think that they would not forego the privacy aspect of WhatsApp to integrate it with Messenger. I think instead they'd use the strengths of WhatsApp and integrate those into Messenger. Like, I think that that's what they would do.
Well, possibly, but what I'm trying to get at, it's not the fact that they're foregoing the privacy aspect and the protection of it. It's the fact that you're now opening it up.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's like saying, hey, I can only ever carpool with one other person in my car because I don't like people in my car. So like, hey, look, I'm going to add 3 people to my car.
Right.
And like, as soon as you start opening up, you have issues, and I don't like this. And the amount of times that Facebook's been hammered and hammered again from privacy issues and data collection issues, I think this is just going to open up a whole nother issue. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
As a Facebook user, Jeff is their biggest fan.
Yeah.
We'll see how it shapes up.
Apple says it's banning Facebook's research app that collects users' personal information. Facebook is at the center of another privacy scandal, and this time it hasn't just angered users, it has also angered Apple. Apple says Facebook broke an agreement it made with Apple by publishing a research app for iPhone users that allowed the social giant to collect all kinds of personal data about those users. The app allowed Facebook to track users' app history, their private messages, and their location data. Facebook's research effort reportedly targeted users as young as 13 years old. As of last summer, apps that collect that kind of data are against Apple's privacy guidelines. That means Facebook couldn't make this research app available through the App Store, which would have required Apple approval. Instead, Facebook apparently took advantage of Apple's Developer Enterprise Program, which lets approved Apple partners like Facebook test and distribute apps specifically for their own employees. In those cases, the employees can use third-party services to download beta versions of apps that aren't available to the general public. Apple doesn't review and approve these apps the way it does for the App Store because they're only supposed to be downloaded by employees who work for the app's creator. Facebook, though, used this program to pay non-employees as much as $20 per month to download the research app without Apple's knowledge. Apple's response via a PR rep this morning: "We designed our enterprise developer program solely for the internal distribution of apps within an organization. Facebook has been using their membership to distribute a data collecting app to consumers, which is a clear breach of their agreement with Apple. Any developer using their enterprise certificates to distribute apps to customers or to consumers will have their certificates revoked, which is what we did in this case to protect our users and their data." Facebook pushed back on the idea that it did anything wrong in collecting the users' data. Facebook says that this program has been ongoing since 2016, which could be evidence that the company wasn't trying to skirt Apple's new policies. Facebook did not, however, comment on whether or not it violated Apple's policies by distributing the app through the Developer Enterprise Program. There are a lot of reasons Facebook wants to know what apps people are using, which explains why it went to such lengths to get around Apple's App Store guidelines. It's unclear if Facebook's actual data collection through this research app poses any risks to the company. Facebook did pay users for using the app, but Facebook is also under investigation from the FTC, which is looking into its data privacy practices. Anything that feels fishy will most certainly attract regulators' attention.
Fantastic. Just what we needed. Another Facebook story about their data collection policies.
Right.
Oh,
so,
no.
I feel like I should rest my case on the previous news article just on this
Let's
alone.
move on. Seriously?
I know.
What? But here's the thing. Why is this a
shady.
surprise? Like,
I feel-
Facebook builds their business off data collection. So if they're going to find a loophole to utilize something to collect data, they're going to do it.
Well, if I pay you $20 and you sign an agreement, I pay you $20 a month, you're now an employee.
Well, exactly.
I've gotten around the terms and conditions of the Apple Developer Network.
Right.
Not
And-
necessarily.
Well,
Because you've got employment
you've-
laws that determines what an employee is.
But what? Maybe a freelance employee.
Freelance does not count.
I don't know.
Because that's contracted.
Don't shoot
Case
me
in
down,
point, look
man.
at Uber
Yeah,
in the UK.
true.
Court of
Yeah.
Appeals.
But I'm just saying, like, is that a justification? Like, the $20 a month, is that a way of saying,
Not at all.
well, you're looking at it from a legal perspective? No, true. But is that a justification to the end user? Like, I don't know. I didn't see a
I
contract,
feel like their
right?
only defense is that they've been doing it for longer than the regulations have been
Maybe.
in place.
Okay, so yeah, when you said that, I'm going, all right, fair enough. So prior to the regulations, if they were allowed to do it, that's one thing. But when the regulations change, you can't say, oh, well, the rules changed, and so I was doing it before the rules, so therefore you can't make me follow the rules now. Like, that's stupid. Like, that's an ignorant response right there. I feel like at this point,
There wasn't a stop sign there last week.
that's right. So why should I stop
I have to
today?
stop?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, come on.
I feel
okay.
like
I see what
Facebook
you're
has
saying.
gone so far in trying to mine information from people's various devices and softwares and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
that it's almost become like an obsession for the company to go on, we need more ways to get information because we're going to get
Oh,
blocked. this hole."
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so,
But
this is what they're doing.
That's
and I
their
just think,
that's their currency. That's how they
that's-
make money.
I
Exactly.
get that, but play within the rules.
Who does?
But who makes the rules? They're one of the biggest companies in the world.
I know. This
makes the rules?
This is the thing, though. I think they've gone too far. They've collected too much and done it in shady ways that they're forcing regulatory oversight that's going to put regulations in place that's going to cause problems for everybody. Had they have just stayed within their sandbox and said, okay, this is what is socially acceptable and not going to get us caught, they went, ooh, look over there. And they went way too far, and now everybody's going to go, "Pah!"
I
and
feel
put
like
fences around them.
how big of a company would they have got gotten to if they had been playing by those rules. Like they're who they are now because of what they've done.
Okay, but what happens once all those regulations get put in place? They're used to playing in this area. You put a fence around them like this, they're going to go, pfft, and then what's left?
I think the key thing is not to forget. As consumers.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't forget. Let's keep in mind these kinds of things that we hear in the news and remember them so that when we circle back 6 months from now and there's something else happening, I think part of the problem as consumers is that we forget of these kinds of violations to our privacy. And this is not affecting me.
No.
But this could very well affect my daughter, like my child.
Right.
And to think that is potentially an issue, that is worrisome to me.
And I know we can't stay on this topic because we've got more news stories, but one of the interesting things that we found from a sociology standpoint is that the current millennial generation and versions around that, they don't care. The mindset is they've got all my information anyway, so why should I be data conscious about my privacy? And so they just don't care.
That's a generalization, Jeff, and I don't like to do that.
It is, but I'm hearing it a lot more because as these things are popping up, I'm talking to people that I know going, be aware of this, and the response overwhelmingly has been,
to be fair,
yeah, they've already got the information anyway.
However, to be fair to that generation, there's an entire other side, and this is not relevant to the story, but to be fair to your comment, there's an entire other side of young people who have grown up with the technology and understand data privacy and say, I will not give my information because I understand it.
Yes.
So there's a whole, maybe it's a 50-50
sure.
split. I don't know. I think what I've learned over, with my discussions with like Tony Anscombe from ESET and talking about data privacy, realizing that it's kind of our generation that is the biggest problem because we grew up in a time when Facebook was starting up and it was so exciting to be able to share so much information with so many people so easily.
Yeah.
And so we grew up thinking that this was okay.
Yeah.
So it's our generation now that is really the biggest concern when it comes to data privacy, and our data's already out there.
Yeah,
is it the younger generation? Maybe not. Maybe you're wrong there.
That's just one subset.
What are your thoughts? Comment below. That's how I move on. See, that's how I That's how I tell Jeff. Okay, shut up. We're gonna move on.
IBM hopes 1 million faces will help fight bias in facial recognition. IBM thinks that the data being used to train facial recognition systems isn't diverse enough. The tech giant released a trove of data containing 1 million images of faces taken from a Flickr data set with 1 million photos and videos.
100 million even.
100 million. 100 million photos and videos. The images are annotated with tags related to features including cranial facial measurements, facial symmetry, age, and gender. Researchers at the company hope that those specific details will help developers train their artificial intelligence-powered facial recognition systems to digitally identify faces more fairly and accurately. John Smith, a fellow and lead scientist at IBM, said facial recognition technology should be fair and accurate. In order for the technology to advance, it needs to be built on diverse training data. Smith stressed the importance of variety in data sets for facial recognition systems to reflect real-world diversity and reduce the rate of error in matching a face to a person. Experts have warned on the potential for artificial intelligence to be biased. Research has shown that facial recognition technology is much more adept at making out the faces of white males than it is with minorities. IBM itself has been the target of criticism over its facial recognition system. A paper by MIT researcher Joy Buolamwini published last year found that IBM Watson's visual recognition platform had an almost 35% error rate when it came to identifying darker-skinned females and a less than 1% error rate for identifying lighter-skinned males.
Wow.
Studies such as this have heightened concerns over the use of facial recognition in areas like law enforcement and the potential for AI-powered racial profiling.
That's a scary thing that I've never really given much consideration to. But if the data set is confined to a certain group,
Yeah.
well, the AI is going to be biased. And it's not lost on me how, we're learning about the fact that the AI needs to be not generic and, able to, not generic at all. And the guy doing the research is John Smith.
Isn't that funny?
That's
I know.
not lost on me at all.
Don't giggle out loud. John Smith says.
Yeah, true story. True story. It actually happened. You saw it here tonight.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's, I've never fully, and shockingly, I've never fully trusted the technology behind facial recognition because of all the challenges that have come with it. I mean, it's one thing to look at, say, fingerprint analysis, which has been going on for so long now, and other than the fact that there's different identifiers, it follows the same pattern. But when it comes to facial recognition, it's totally different. I mean, all it could take is, a little bit of change in facial hair or throwing on some glasses to skew the entire thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many times have we had stories where it's like, oh, this computer's got the facial recognition. Oh, a picture cracked it.
Sure. Well, last
Right.
week we learned about AI and how it's going to be growing to the point of being human-like. And I think until it reaches that point, like I can look at Sasha and that's Sasha. You
Right.
see Sasha and you know that's Sasha. You see Jeff and you know that is Jeff.
Right.
You see me and you know that is Bald Nerd.
Right.
But will an AI, is it at that point now? No.
No,
what about-
but okay. Can I just take it just to a weird spot for a moment?
Sure.
I just watched the documentary on Ted Bundy.
Okay.
He was, after he escaped from prison, he was rearrested for a traffic infraction
Okay.
and held in a prison and lied about his name. Even though there were a ton of FBI most wanted pictures and such, he had grown out his facial hair and human beings couldn't recognize that he was who he was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Happens all
Right?
the time.
It happens all the time. I actually
What?
trust that event. Pardon?
But
But
like humans couldn't?
humans couldn't.
Could AI?
Well, what I'm saying is, once we develop this AI, I feel like the AI would have done a better job
think so?
at figuring out, hey, this is that guy, than we could ourselves.
Okay, I see.
Right? So I think that, I have a lot of faith in AI, as you know. I think that it could do better than us. We just have to train it how to do so. So these pictures and this facial recognition and these, exposure to all different types of faces,
Yeah.
right? That's the win because, yeah, you see me and you see Sasha, right? But I could change how I look. I could change my hair. I could change my glasses.
But I, as a human, would still recognize. Well, but you say that in this instance, it wasn't. He wasn't recognizable.
It wasn't recognizable, right? But that's because you're not looking like you're looking at the extras on the outside of me. Where I think that AI will be looking at like my bone structure as well.
But someone
right?
who knows you, like thinking of the AI piece and comparing that to
Right.
human intelligence. I know Jeff well enough that when he grows in his beard, I still know that who he is. I would still
Right.
recognize him from across the street.
Right. But would everybody?
No,
right?
not
Case
necessarily.
in point, no. I was at the gym, saw somebody that I've known for years, and they're like, Jeff.
Okay.
I was like,
Took them some
yes.
time.
And they're like, wow, dude, beard totally changed you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I got fat.
You're at the gym.
I was
Yeah.
at the gym trying to unfat.
So slug him.
Yeah, but what about things like identical twins? Like I've known a couple of sets of identical twins growing up, and I can look at them and I know the difference.
Absolutely.
Like there's just minute things.
Yeah.
But I wonder, would AI and facial recognition
Oh, man.
know to
I
look
would
for
say-
an
We're
identical
going to
twin?
get there. We're
I
gonna
would
get
say
there.
yes, because I would say that identical twins, anybody, has different micro expressions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And AI is going to be smart enough to distinguish one versus the other, right? I have identical twin sisters, and I can see
I
the
did not
difference
know
in
that.
them. Oh no? You've met one of them.
Well, we're not there. We're
Okay.
not there yet. But we as humans can recognize the difference between identical twins.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not there yet with AI, but could this be so Watson getting this infusion of 100 million faces
Yeah.
from Flickr? being able to recognize other races, other ethnicities, if you know, like just other sexes. I mean, why is it white males? What was the data set that they were given?
Is that like the majority of the base on Flickr?
I don't know where it comes from.
Maybe that's the issue. It's all white males on Flickr.
But my like the whole point is that maybe with an increased data set, it's just about training the computer, because the computer needs to know.
Yeah.
Because it's like an
Maybe
idiot.
Facebook should build an
idiot
app for
puppy. It's just got to learn.
It's just got to learn, and then it'll get there, and then we'll all be better people because of it.
I hope so. I really hope so,
believe
Sasha.
so.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick look at cryptocurrency this week. According to CoinGecko, here's what the crypto market looked like as of 1800 hours Eastern Time on Wednesday, January 30th, 2019. Bitcoin is at $3,462.34, down $70.07 US. Litecoin actually gained just a fraction at 31.75 USD. $108.32 for Ethereum. Monero is at $43.46, just a little bit down from last week. Stellite and Turtlecoin, the little guys. Well, Stellite's sitting around where it was last week, and Turtlecoin is down a little bit at 1.15 ten-thousandths of a cent. Remember, the cryptocurrency market never closes, and it's always volatile.
Big thanks to Roy W. Nash, Solbu, and our community of viewers for submitting stories to us this week. Thanks for watching the Category 5.tv newsroom. Don't forget to like and subscribe for all your tech news with a slight Linux bias. And for more free content, be sure to check out our website. From the Category 5.tv newsroom, I'm Sasha Rickman.
I'm Robbie Ferguson.
And I'm Jeff Weston.